Welcome to part one of Sarah's lessons in creative baking. Today I'm going to be showing you how you can make your own measuring cup and how you can make a cake without an oven and without any of the materials that you would normally be able to get, say in the United States. So where I'm from, in the United States, we have a specific kind of measuring cups that you can buy. And these are used for measurements in all kinds of recipes, and if you look on the internet you can find instructions using these measurements for any kind of baking thing like a cake. However, here in Uganda where I live, those are not available. So today I'm going to show you how you can make your own measuring cup with a nice cup like this, and then you will be able to make any recipe that you find on the internet. If you don't have an oven, you can also make cakes, and that's what we're going to be doing today. So the only materials that you will need are a nice cup, a tablespoon, a teaspoon, and then a large saucepan with a cover, as well as a smaller saucepan that can fit inside with some room to spare. Then you need a source of heat. It can be cooking gas like I'm going to use, or it can be a charcoal stove, or it can be firewood. As long as it's something that can boil water, that is all that you need. So those are the materials that you're going to need. Our first lesson is going to be how to make a measuring cup, so we're going to get to that in just a moment. To make a measuring cup, like I said, you need a nice cup. After you have made a measuring cup using a nice cup, you can use that one and fill with water up to the measurements and pour them into some other container. But as a standard type of cup that most people have in Uganda, we're going to be using this one. So you need your cup, and you'll need a ruler that has measurements in centimeters. And if you look at our picture here, it shows our cup and then the ruler. And you put the ruler next to the cup so that 0 is lining up with the bottom of the cup. And then you go up to 1.5 centimeters. At that point on the cup, you draw a line, and that is going to be 1/4 of a cup. Next, you go to 2.5 centimeters. At that point, you draw a line. That is going to be 1/3 of a cup. Next, we go to 3 centimeters, draw a line, and that is going to be 1/2 a cup. At 4 centimeters, again, we put a line, that's going to be 2/3 of a cup. Then, 4.5 centimeters, we put a line on the cup, that's going to be 3/4 of a cup. And finally, at 5.5 centimeters up the cup, we put a line, and that one is going to be 1 cup. So when you read the instructions for the recipes that we're going to have, if they say 1 cup, that does not mean a full nice cup. That means at 5.5 centimeters, that line that you drew on the cup, that is going to be 1 cup. So I'm just going to try to show this to you a little bit closer up. Here is our nice cup, and if you can see, at 1.5 centimeters, there is a line there, and that line is 1/4 of a cup. 1/4. Then I've divided my lines a bit so that they can be easily seen, because you can see that some of them are only 1/2 centimeter apart, which is very close, and so it's difficult to make those readings when you're looking at the cup. So I shifted the cup a bit, and there at 2.5 centimeters I have another line, and that one is 1/3 of a cup. Then again I shifted the cup back. At 3 centimeters, right here, I have 1/2 of a cup. 1/2. Then turning it again, right at 4 centimeters, I draw my line, 4 centimeters. This is 2/3, 2/3. Then again, at 4.5 centimeters. I have a line, 4.5 centimeters, and that one is 3/4, 3/4. And then the last one is right at 5 centimeters. I have a line. This one is 1 cup, 1 cup. So any kind of pen that you use to write on the cup will get washed off when you wash it, and of course you need to wash it to be able to reuse it. And so what I've done, I've taken a needle and put it into the fire so that it got really hot, and then I melted these lines onto the cup so that they became permanent. So even if I wash off the marking pen, which will happen, I'll still be able to see where those lines are. You just need to be careful that you don't pierce the cup, because then you pour milk into it and it comes pouring out of the holes. So that is the method for making your nice cup into a measuring cup, and once you've done that, then you can move on to the next step in the lesson, which is actually making a cake. Here is a close-up of that picture of how to make your nice cup into a measuring cup so that you can see well the measurements. And then here is another nice cup so that you can see how it looks. Let me go back for a moment to some of the materials that you need for making a cake. Of course, the first thing that we need is some flour, and we usually use wheat flour for making cakes. And hopefully we'll get to making a cake that also uses maize flour or posho flour, but most cakes use wheat flour. So this is the one that I happen to have, but any kind, it doesn't have to be safi, any kind can work. Then we need something to make our cake sweet. Usually that's sugar. You could also use honey if you prefer that, and it's healthier, but then you would maybe reduce the liquid that's in your cake a little bit so that it's not so wet. Some cakes use cooking oil, and that's the fat that helps the cake to be a nice texture, and of course we like eating things that are sweet and fat, and so that's one of the things that we have in our cake. We also need something that will make the cake rise, and usually this is baking powder, and some brands of baking powder are just okay. Usually this chapa mandashi works pretty well. But you might find that one has sat in a shop for a really long time and it got old and it won't make your cake rise. And so if that is the problem, then getting a new one will help. Some cakes also use bicarbonate of soda, and this also helps in making the cake rise. A lot of the times the cakes that have this one also have vinegar in them. So vinegar is a weak acid, and if you don't have vinegar, you can also use juice from a lemon, and they do the same thing in a cake. If you want to have a chocolate cake, you use cocoa. And cocoa is different from drinking chocolate. It's just the chocolate flavor, so if you taste it, it's very bitter, but it gives the cake a chocolate flavor. If you use drinking chocolate, that one also has sugar added to it, and so it will make the cake more sweet and less chocolatey. Some cakes have something to give them a special flavor. So there's vanilla flavor that's in a lot of cakes, but they also sell different types of flavors like lemon or passion fruit or pineapple, and they're in these little containers like this in the supermarket. Some cakes also have cinnamon in them, and this is a spice that's used to give it a nice flavor and a nice smell. It's found in pilau mix, and it's also in tea masala. So if you don't have cinnamon, but you have tea masala, you can use that one instead, and it will still be a nice cake. But if you don't have one of these flavors, like cinnamon or vanilla, you can still make a cake and it will be fine. It's optional. Unless you're trying to make a vanilla flavored cake, then you need to have vanilla. But otherwise, if you don't have it, you can still make the cake without it. The baking powder, the bicarbonate of soda, those are not optional, so you have to have them or your cake will not rise, and that would be very disappointing. So these are not optional, but the flavors, those are optional. And then a lot of times we have salt, some cakes have eggs, some cakes have milk, and as we go on we'll see that different cakes have different ingredients, and we'll see how they look and how they taste. Well, at least I'll see how they taste, but hopefully you'll also be making them at home and you can taste them as well.